Hello and welcome to this week's tutorial. This week we're going to be looking at some 2D needle felting, and the picture you see in front of you of mushrooms is the one that we're going to be following along with. Obviously you can change the colours around to suit what you would like, but basically this is going to be the technique that we're going to be using. So you'll need some wool acrylic felt for the base. You will need a hoop to hold your piece in. You'll need some embroidery threads, a pair of scissors, wool roving or tops of your choice, some felting needles, maybe even a felting pen, a felting brush or sponge, and also a way of transferring your design onto your felt base. Cut yourself some acrylic felt that is bigger than your hoop. This is because if you intend to frame it, you're going to need that extra for later. You also need some transfer paper or some way to transfer your design. This one was a clover paper in a white that worked well on my purple background. Okay, so here I am starting out with the spots of the first mushroom. You could do it the other way around. You could do the base and then needle felt spots onto the top of it. That would be absolutely fine as well. I went the difficult route and decided to do the spots first, just because I really wanted to see how this blue looked on the purple. But again, do it your way, do it how you feel comfortable with. Make sure that your felt is on the piece of sponge or the felting brush that you are using. Always have something underneath it. Never do it on your knee, because that is dangerous. Those felting needles are very sharp and they have barbs on them, and they hurt going in and they hurt coming out, and they can do quite a bit of damage. So just be very careful to keep your fingers away from where you're felting, and never felt just on your knee with nothing underneath it. You can see here I've got a piece of sponge underneath mine. At some point I'll swap over to the brush as well, but when I'm using the hoop, this small sponge that I have underneath mine is really handy because it can fit inside the hoop, and therefore I can get a good connection between my felt piece and the felting threads that I'm using. I tend to get my wool tops and things from a place called World of Wool. It's a fabulous place. You go there and they have selections of different kinds of wool. For this particular piece, you can use whatever you have. So if you've already got some felting wool to use, then use that. If you wanted some specific colours, obviously, then you're going to need to buy some more, but just use what you have on hand. I have collected so many different wool pieces and threads over the years that I've got lots to choose from. So remember, when you're going in with your needle, you need to go straight in and out. You don't need to go all the way up to the end of the needle, because the barbs are only on that first part of your needle, and that's as far in as you need to be going. So just jabbing in and out, making sure that you are not bending your needle, because if you do bend it, you will find that maybe it will snap and fly, and that is also not a good thing to be doing. I'm working on the second mushroom now, so I'm getting all the base colours in, just so that I can see where I am and work around with it. At the moment it's looking quite good, and I'm enjoying the colours and how it's working out. I did have a box of wool tops that I have left over, because I always save every little bit, because you can see from this you don't need a lot in order to make a picture. You don't need much of the wool tops in order to get something down, but I do suggest lay it down in thin layers, because you can always add to it, and then you can maybe shape your piece a little more. You can see me using the needle here just to shape the fibres in. I don't suggest that you do that because I use a very light pressure, and if you do drag your needle across the felt again, it could be prone to breakage. So I don't suggest doing what I'm doing. It's do as I say, not do as I do. But yeah, and here we can see it's all felting in really nicely. and then it's just a case of when you pull the fibres apart, if you're pulling them from your piece of roving or tops, grab both ends gently and just pull gently. If you pull too hard, they won't separate away from the main piece. It will be like they'll be grabbing onto each other. So if you do a very gentle, slow pull, think gentle as you pull them apart, it will work really, really well. So now I'm doing the stalk of the second mushroom. I found this nice coppery red colour. It's a bit like a fox's fur, and I thought that would go quite nicely. So that's that bottom bit that's going in now. Again, remember to keep your fingers well away from the felting needle. I have been felting for some time, so if I jab myself, it's my own silly fault, but I generally tend to know where to keep my fingers so that I'm not going to be jabbing myself unnecessarily. Luckily, touch wood, I didn't jab myself at all, which is always a bonus. Sometimes the kits that you can get for these things come with a little rubber finger that you can put on to protect your finger, and I suggest if you're doing this for the first time, get one of those silicone finger guards to pop on your finger, and then any horrible mishaps will be lessened by that, hopefully. Fingers crossed. we've skipped ahead, you can see that I have completed the base of all the mushrooms and their stalks. And now something a little different. You don't have to do this. This is just because I had some to hand in my little work basket. But basically, it doesn't have to be a wool felt that you can needle felt in. You can try bits of organza, or in this case, a little bit of muslin that's been dyed into a beautiful green colour, and I thought would fit quite nicely as part of the forest floor. I'm snipping off the bits that I don't need and then just continuing to needle felt it in the same way that you would with any wool pieces. So again, just a handy little tip, you can use organza, as I said, or just some kind of thin material. Sometimes ribbon works quite well, and sometimes different yarns. So if you have a collection of yarns, as I do, try needle felting those in as well for different textures, because that can work quite well. If you're not that confident, don't worry, stick with your wool fibres and you won't go far wrong. Just keep on keeping on. So there are two ways of outlining your pieces. The purists will say to you, use wool, use small amounts of wool and needle felt it around the edges, which does work really well, and it gives a more organic look to your piece. I, however, am of a different camp. The way that I like to do my pieces, I'm just showing you how to do the felting of the wool here, but the way that I like to do my pieces is to mix media it and add in some embroidery threads that I use to outline the edges, add in detail and texture, and maybe a few beads and sequins, because I have to satisfy that little magpie that lives inside of me. But if you'd like to try, this is how you do it. You make very, very thin slivers of wool and go all around the edges of your pieces. Here I am though, being my alternative self with my threads, and I like this better. It feels better to me and I enjoy this better, and that's what it's all about really, isn't it? It's about enjoyment. So you do you. If you'd like to do the purist method with the wool and it works for you, absolutely go for it. I do like my embroidery threads, and I do like to add in little details and textures with those, and sequins and beads, and so this is what you'll see me doing. So if you want to do that, then feel free to do that, or you can just keep it plain. You don't have to add anything in at all, so it just depends on what you like about your piece. Here I'm showing you that I've done the gills on the mushroom with some embroidery thread. Again, that would work equally as well with some wool. It will just take a little bit of extra time. And this is a finished piece. You can see that I've added in some sequins and satisfied the magpie bird that lives inside. I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you did, please give me a like and subscribe, and click the bell if you want to see more of the things that I'm going to be uploading here. For now, see you next week.